Now here in this lecture, we are going to study MRO. It means Method Resolution Order. In multiple inheritance, any specified attributes or method is searched first in the current class. As we have seen, suppose two base classes, base 1, base 2, and then derived. So in multiple inheritance, any specified attributes or the method is first searched in the current class, that is your inherited class. If not found, the search is continuous in the parent class. Then it goes to the parent class, that is your base 1 and base 2 in that sense. In depth first search, you have seen the DFS in case of the data structure as well. So it goes from the, if not found in the main, in the child class, so it goes to the parent class in depth first search way. Left to right fashion without searching into the same class twice. So it uses the DFS and it goes left to right without searching into the same class or same child class. Searching in this way is to be called as the method resolution order. So what is method resolution order? Whenever you are going to search something, first it will search into the child class. If it is not found, then it goes into the parent class. Whenever it goes into the parent class, it follows the DFS, that is your first search, and it uses left to right approach. In this way, it will go ahead. If it follows that mechanism, is to be termed as the method resolution order. Now we'll see what is the principle of it. The principle it says that the first principle is to search for the subclass before going to its base class. As I've said in the definition of the first statement of your MRO, first it will search in the base subclasses and then going to its base class. If class B is inherited from class A, it will search B first, then it goes to the A. So that is your first principle. Second principle, when a class is inherited from several classes, there are multiple classes are there which has to be inherited into one classes. So second principle says that whenever the class is inherited from the several classes, it search in the order from left to right. As we have seen, father comma mother, first it will search into the father, right? But here in MRO, what it says that if there are multiple classes which is to be inherited into the single one, it search in the order from left to right in the base class. It goes from left to right. For example, if C is inherited from A and B class, and you are writing the statement in this way, C, A, comma, B, then it will first search in the A, then it goes into the B. So it will follow from left to right approach. This is the second principle of the MRO. Third principle, it will not visit any class more than once. Only one time it will search. Either it is the base class or either it is the child class. So the third principle says that it will not visit any class more than once. That means a class in the inheritance hierarchy is traversed only once exactly. DFS में कैसे होता है? It will be traversed only once exactly. So here also it follows for searching. It has to be traversed from left to right, but only that particular class is to be traversed only once or exactly once. So at the same time also it has the method to know the MRO of any of the diagram. So to know MRO, we can use MRO open and close bracket method. So first thing is that we classify the class name dot MRO. This returns the sequence of execution of the class. This returns the sequence of the execution of the class in which the method is called. So here I hope everyone have understood what is MRO. It will first search into the child class, then it goes from the base class and it follows the procedure from left to right. It will try to traverse exactly once. These are the three principles. At the same time, if you want to know for the any class what is the MRO of it, you can use the method MRO in the lowercase letter, open and close round bracket, and it has to be written along with the class name. You can see the example here. This is your hierarchy where you have the multiple classes. Class object is there, it has to be inherited into the three classes, that is X, Y, Z. Then it goes to A and B. Then it goes to M. A and B is inherited. A is inherited from X and Y. Similarly, B is inherited from Y and Z. And then M is inherited from the three classes A, B, and Z. So in this way, the inheritance hierarchy is given. So how the MRO will work? MRO will work on their principle as it is said. Otherwise, if you want to check it, you can use the method. So whenever you use that method, you can see, don't look at the program, only see the output. If you have written the program where output MRO method, what is the output of the MRO method? Here you can see it. Rectangular box output is there, right? Where written class main M, class main A, class main X, then class main B, then class main Y, then class main Z, then class main object. So what is the output? M, A, X, B, Y, Z. You can see in this, first it goes to M, then A, then X, then B, then Y, then Z. In this way it is traverse from left to right. First it will place finish all the left, then it goes to the right. Right. It goes to the object, then it goes to the left of X, then X there is no left, it will go to the A there is no left, it goes to the right. M there is nothing on the left and right, so it is traverse now. It goes back to the A, and X is also traverse. Then it goes to the B. Then B, in that sense also it covers the B, and then Y, and then it covers the Z. That's why you can see the output in the DFS as in this way: M, A, X, B, Y, and Z. So that is to be displayed here. This is directly you can obtain it by using the MRO method, which follows the principle as it is stated in the diagrammatic, or as it is stated in the slide. But at the same time, you can also implement it with the help of that hierarchy programs by using the super classes, where we have seen one object class is there, which has to be inherited into the two classes A and B, and then it is inherited into the inherited into the C classes. So whatever the way we program have written, for that the similar thing is also available here. We can write the same coding, and we'll try to obtain the output which is to be obtained by the MRO, or we can achieve the goal of your MRO as well. So here one is your class A, class X. You can once again refer the diagram. Object is by default, it will be inherited X, Y, Z, then it goes to A and B, then it goes to M. Class X object, then def method is there. Inside that we are printing X class method. Then we are calling super dot method. Everywhere the super keyword is to be used, as we have seen in the previous example of the mother and father as well. Sorry, in the example of your object A, B, and C diagram. Then class Y object is to be inherited. Then def method, and we are printing the Y class method, and then we are calling super dot method. Then class Z, it is also inheriting the inbuilt by default class object, and then def method self, then printing the Z class method. All three classes are now implemented, right? And then we are using def, then using the class A. You can see now class A is inherited into the two classes, X as well as Y. So here class A X comma Y, def method, then print class A method, then we are calling super dot method. Then class B is inherited Y and Z. You can see class B inheriting Y and Z, def method, printing the B class method, calling the super. Then next is your class M. It has A, B, and Z. So here class M, A, B, and Z, def method is written, then printing M class method, and once again calling super dot method. So all the classes are now implemented. After that, it is creating an object of the M class, and here it is written print M dot MRO. MRO is the method that you have seen. ये जो output आया class main A, class main X, etc. That is the output of this line. Print class name, that is your M dot MRO. So it will give the output of the entire hierarchy. Object is created, M is equal to M, open and close round bracket, then M dot method, then M dot method. So it will print you the, it will call the methods, all the methods of your hierarchy. So it will call the method of your M, then it goes to their superclass, then it goes to the superclass. It follows the right and left and right mechanism what we have said in the case of the principal, and that will be followed. And now this output is to be obtained here, M, A, X, B, Y, and Z. Similarly, the output that is obtained by the MRO. In this way, you can write a program that will follow the DFS principle, that it will traverse from left to right, and all the classes will be visited exactly once. So here you can see that M, A, X, B, Y, Z, it is traversed exactly one, and all the classes is to be covered, and it follows the rules of your DFS, which uses the left to right approach. So here in the diagram also it is in the similar way, M, A, X, B, Y, and Z. Either if you want to see it directly, you can use the MRO method. If you want to implementation, you can implement it in this way. Next is your method overloading. Method overloading. Basically, we can say that we are not overloading a method directly, but we are changing some features so that we can obtain the task of your method overloading. So method overloading can be obtained in this way, which is in here the example is given. So we can achieve the method overloading by writing the same method name but several parameters. For example, you can see the aim of the program, write a program to show method overloading to find sum of two or three numbers. Summation of two and three numbers. For that purpose, the overloading method is to be written. So first one is class my class, then def sum. After that, three variables we are using A, B, and C. Def sum self instance variable, then A equal to none, B equal to none, C equal to none. All are initialized. All the variables are by default value is initialized as none, none, none. Right? If no value is passed, it will take it as the none. Otherwise, if the value will be passed, it will replace it with the with that value. So here, first method is defined. After that, it is written if A equal to none, A not equal to none, and B not equal to none, and C not equal to none. Then it will print the summation of all these three numbers A plus B plus C. Otherwise, L if inside the same def or inside the same method, it is written as if A not equal to none and B not equal to none. Two are none, so at that time it will print the summation of these two numbers. Here it is written sum of 3, it is sum of 2. So A plus B will be there. Else, please enter the three arguments. So here what we have done, we can execute a program in this way. All three values will be passed or only two values will be passed. Right? So what we are doing, we are calling a method two times, same methods with the same name two times, but the parameters are differentiating. In case of method overloading, what we do, more than one method with the same name, but they are different in terms of the parameters, either their data type, either their number of the arguments, either the order of the arguments, etc. But here what it says, the same method is to be written, but you can call it whenever you have defined it, some default value. So you have the freedom. You can call it with that default value. You can call it with the specific value. You can call it with the reduced number of the values. So first now you can see it here for the part of the program. The object of the class is created, m is equal to my class, opening close bracket, then m dot sum. M dot sum, m is an object, sum is the method of your my class, and here we are passing three parameters 10, 15, 20. So instead of a equal to none, b equal to none, c equal to none, what it will take, a equal to 10, b equal to 15, and c equal to 20. Now none is replaced with the incoming value as 10, 15, and 20. So you can see the output that prints sum of 3, a plus b plus c. So it will print sum of 3 is 45. Next time it is passed m dot sum, the second calling of the method. M is the object, sum is the method of your my class. Then 10.5 comma 20.5, here the data type is also different and the number of the argument is also different. Data type is a float and number of the argument is 2 now. Once again it goes to the part def, and here a equal to none, it will be replaced with a equal to 10.5, b equal to none, it will be replaced with b equal to 2.5, 20.5, and c equal to none will remain same. Now it will check, first condition is not satisfied, but second condition is satisfied, a not equal to none and b not equal to none. So it will print the sum of these two numbers, a plus b. So you can see the output is displayed as 31.0. And at the end, it will print whenever you are passing only the one argument. M dot sum 100, only one argument is to be passed. So here what happens, it will A equal to none, A equal to 100 is initialized, B is equal to none is same, C equal to none is same. First condition, all three not none, not satisfied. Second condition also not satisfied, so it will go to the third part. And inside the third part, now it will print, please enter the 2 or 3 arguments. So in this way, you can achieve the work of your method overloading. You can write one class, you can write one method with the multiple parameters, and that can be called multiple number of times with 3 parameters, 2 parameters, and 1 parameters. Next is your method overriding, as we have seen in the earlier example as well in the case of the square and rectangle. Now we are the same. Method overriding. Method overriding, what is the meaning of more than 2 methods with the same name in the different class? Here the class square is there, that circle is there. Both are having the area method, def area. More than one method with the same name in the different class, so it will be termed as the overriding. Now we'll see the example to understand how to call the overriding method. First, import math, because we are using math.py. For that purpose, the math class is imported. Import math, that is your inbuilt. Then class square, and inside that class square area method is implemented. Def area cell comma x, then printing the square area, then the square is printed x comma x, but here it is given percentage point 4f, so it will take after the decimal, it will take only the 4 values. You can see the output, circle area 706.8583, so there is a 4 after the decimal, 8583 is to be taken. Next class circle inside a bracket square, inheriting the square, and then once again area method is defined, def area. Then we have print circle area percentage point 4f, then math.py multiplied by x multiplied by x, that is your pi square, pi r square. You can say x is your radius. So at that time, once again it uses the math.py, so that's why the class import math is there. Then here it is written percentage point 4, at that time after the decimal it will only refer the fourth value, so you can see the output 225.00004 times. And then one statement is written super dot area. So the object of your circle class is created, so you can, whenever it will first search into the child class, in child class if it is found, then it will display. But in child class, if the some reference is given which will point to the super class also, so at that time it will go to the super class as well. So here super dot area x, so at that time it will go to the super class and then area of the square, where one parameter is needed, so one parameter x is passed. Now we are creating an object of the circle class, c is equal to circle, and then c dot area 15 is passed. So what happens, c equal to circle, so it will create an object of the circle class, and then we are calling c dot area, so it will call the area method of your super class, and then it displays the value of it. So you can see the output is given as circle area first, then it goes super dot area, and it will display the square area. So you can see the square area output as the second. In this way, we can achieve the task of your method overrun. So here, totally we have understood what is the inheritance, how to write a program of the single inheritance, how to write a program of the multi-level inheritance, how to write a program for the multiple inheritance, what is the problem of the multiple inheritance, and how it will be achieved. Then what is the MRO, what is the utilization of the MRO, what it follows the rules of the MRO. Here we have understood what is the meaning of the method overloading, how the one program, how the one method is defined and it is overloaded with the multiple parameters, either 3, 2 or 1. We have understood how to write and method overriding and how to call a overriding method. At the same time, if there are multiple classes with their multiple constructor, also here we have understood how to call the constructor of the multiple classes. So here one name multiple form, that is to be termed as the polymorphism. What is polymorphism? One name and the multiple form. One name is sum and their multiple form is sum of 2, sum of 3, sum of 1. So one name multiple form will be termed as the polymorphism. At the same time, you can also pass the string as well, where it will perform the concatenation of the string. You can see the statement that are written on the last slide where we have covered the lab outcomes as to understand the concept in the Python. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. If you're not getting the output, try one more time. Definitely you'll get the output. If you're not getting the output, try one more time. So the difference between the success and the failure is only one step. If you go ahead one step, you will definitely get the success of it. So there is always a one step difference in between the success as well as the failure. So here, hope everyone understood. Now I'll go for the next part of it. Screen is visible, Arthik. Screen is visible, can anyone? Okay, fine. Next topic is the exception. Exception in Java, exception in Python. What is the exception? That is basically the one type of the error is to be termed as the exception. The errors which occurs at the time of running your program is to be termed as the exception. So here errors in Python, there are basically three types of the errors. One is your compile time error, a second is your runtime error, or third you can say the logical error, right? Suppose you want to perform the compile time error, you want to write something, but it gives the error at the time of the compilation. So you can say that this is your compile time error. Runtime error, everything is written correctly, but at the time of the running, you are getting the error, so it will be your runtime error. Logical error, you want to perform the addition, but it is in the multiplication, so you can see that that is the error of type of the logical error. Now you can see the compile time error. Suppose you have written the statement as x is equal to 1, and here if you are writing if x is equal to 1, but here the indentation mark is not included, and after that we are printing very fully. So whenever you are going to run this program, it gives an error invalid syntax because it missed out or missing the indentation mark. So here colon is not given if x is equal to 1. So at that time of the compilation, it gives you the error that indentation is missing. So the error which comes of this type, you can say this is your compile time of the error. So here, if you haven't followed the rules of the syntax declaration, At that time, it will be giving the type of the error, which is your compile time error. Next is your runtime error. Suppose one list is defined as any mill, open and close square bracket. Inside that you have written 1, 2, 3, 4 separated by the comma. Right. So 0 is your at 0th place it is 1, as 1 place it is 2, then 2 place it is 3, then 3 place it is 4. Right. But if you want to access the 4th place, then what happens? This is 0, 1, 2, and 3. So if you are printing animal of 4, at that time what happens? It is try to access the locations which is not available. So you can say that least index out of range. So we are trying to access the animal at the 4th position which is not available. So this type of the error, you can say at the time of the running you are getting, there is no logical error, there is no compile time error here. The runtime error here, we are trying to access the data at the time of the running of the program, whereas there is no syntactical mistake in it. So that kind of the error is to be termed as the index error, or you can see that the list indexed out of range. It does not give you the output. At the time of running, it will display the output. Next is your logical error. Suppose you want to calculate the salary. For that purpose, you have written some formula as def increment cell, and then your return cell is equal to, then you have written cell is equal to cell multiplied by 15 divided by 100. Then you're returning a salary. There is nothing mistake is there in it syntactically. Then cell equal to increment 5,000 you have passed. Then increment is to be called. At that time, it will be stored into the salary, and then incremented salary is to be printed. But here, sometimes the formula might be wrong. So here it considered that it is showing you the wrong output. The formula to calculate is wrong. It should be like this one: cell is equal to cell plus cell multiplied 15 divided by 100. So at that time, what is the logical error? Whatever the logic you are writing in that, you are making a mistake. Simple example, you can say you want to get the addition of 15 numbers, but you are getting the multiplication of 15 numbers. So what is that? The formula wrong is there. So that is the type of the error which is to be termed as the logical error. आपने expect कुछ और किया था, but you are getting the certain other things that which is to be expect, which was not expected. So you can see that this is your logical error. So this is the type of your logical error. Next is your exception. Now we are moving towards the exception. Exception are the runtime errors which can be handled by the programmer. The errors which occurs, which was not accepting at the time of the running of the program, that is to be termed as the exception. It has to be handled by the programmer and programmer as well. And there is an inbuilt class. All exceptions are represented in the class as a class in the Python. There are many more classes are there. We have also discussed in practical as well. There is a lots of the built-in exception classes are there which you can utilize it. So there is a base exception. It has the exception class where you have the arithmetic exception class, OS exception, OS error, the runtime error, lookup error, syntax error, indentation error. If you're missing the indentation at that time, zero division error if you're dividing the data with the zero, file not found if the file is to be stored at other reference point at that time, this class is to be used. Then permission error where the certain file is to be required a certain permission, and then index error, key error. Many more classes are there in the Python for the exception. You can utilize it where you are having the doubt that at this part the exception may occur. At that time, to handle it properly, you can use that exception class which is to be defined by the Python. Likewise, in the Java also there are many more exception classes you have studied. So whenever it is required, you are going to utilize it. Similarly, here also there are many more exception classes are there. Whenever you want to use it, you can utilize it. So the exception handling keys, these are the exception handling keys. Exceptions are the runtime errors which can be handled by the program, as I've said in the earlier slide also, and it has the multiple classes. Similarly, there are various keys are used to handle that exceptions. So you can see to it here, try one keyword, then except is the keyword, else is the keyword, then finally is the keyword, assert is the keyword, and raise is the keyword. So these are the exception handling techniques keyword which are used to handle your exceptions, or which are used to handle your runtime errors. So with the help of that case, you easily comes to know that what are the problems that occurs at the time of running your program. So you can make the corrections according to it. So it will be handled by the programmer properly. But remember it is nothing but try, except, else, finally, assert, and raise. Now one is your technique is your try. To handle the exception, we have to perform the following steps which has to be performed. The step one, the statement which causes an exception, it should be written inside the try block. If you are thinking that particular statement will generate an error, right, that generate an exception at the time of the running of program, so it will be kept inside a try block. So you can see that try is the keyword, then colon, then indentation mark. This statement will be kept here. Try colon, then within that indentation you should write the statement. So that statement will be considered as the part of the try. When the Python virtual machine understand that there is an exception, it jumps to the except block. So there is one more block which is your except block. Whenever this statement gives an exception, then it will jump to that except block. So you can see also diagrammatic notation, continuously it will try till all the errors it will be removed, or it will be informed to you that this is the error which is to be thrown by using the except block. Now here in the except block, the programmer should write the except block where he should or she should display the exception details to the user, right? At that time, except keyword is the use, then exception name, which we have seen the exception class, exception, file not found exception, value error exception, array index out of bound exception, zeros division error, multiple exception names you can write it here, and then this statement for your understanding. So what is the type of the error that you are getting, it should be written here so that you can handle it properly. So the statement written inside the except block are called as the handler. So this is nothing but the handler. Whenever any error occurs, any statement causes an error in case of your try block, then it will jump to your except, and here the except particular class matches, and then it will be displayed to you to understand, and it is handled by the programmer efficiently to know what is the kind of the error. You can see the difference between the except and except in case of the diagram. Exception case, that is your error which should be separated to understand or to handle properly, and then otherwise everything should be accepted. Next is finally, right, that you have finally completed your task, so you get the most satisfaction of it. Here finally keyword is used. So lastly, the programmer should perform the cleanup action like closing the file, terminating the file process which are running. The programmer should write this code in the finally block. What I will say generally, the statement which you want, either there is an exception, but this statement should be executed, it will be kept inside your finally block. So here finally keyword is used, then in colon, then indentation mark, here you should write the statement. So that statement should be written related to your finally. The specialty of this block is that the statement inside finally block are executed irrespective of the exception. Even the exception is that, but the finally block is to be executed compulsorily. So if you are assuming that this particular statement should always be executed, so it should be kept inside your finally block. For example, if you have opened one file, an exception occurs, the file will remain open. It is not closed. So you can write the closing statement inside the finally. So whenever exception occurs or whenever your program has finished, whenever you have updated everything, the file is to be closed. So at that time you can write it inside the finally block. so that whenever the exception occurs, also at that time, finally it will close your file. So whenever some important instructions that is to be required is to be executed, even if there is an error, even there is an exception inside your program at the time of running your program, so it will be kept inside your finally block. So this is the third step. Now you see the one example of the exceptions where we'll try to catch it. So less than 1 minute is left. Everyone rejoin it so we can continue with this lecture, and I will try to finish the exception handling technique. Everyone post your attendance in the chat box. I hope everyone had understood what is the meaning of the exception, runtime error, compile time error, logical error. Simple example which I have given. Then what is the meaning of the exception? What are the various classes of the exceptions? What are the keys which are used related to the exceptions? Then what are the steps which is to be